picks up. They might take the Kog'Maw away just to prevent the option of Juggernaut. Looks like they will, and of course the Elise, a strong pickup for score.
Arrow is 7-1 on Kog'Maw this season, over a 10 KDA. This is definitely right in his wheelhouse. The Sivir and the Kog'Maw have been a landslide his best champions in terms of KDA. Mixes in Corki whenever those are not available. This does deny, of course, the true Juggernaut, given that Kog'Maw's not available. So was KOO really showing their hands early with the Lulu, or do they have something different to show us? 5-15, they're showing Echo. AP Echo is certainly a thing on this patch.
And Kuro's played it before, too, so that has been a major consideration. He was one of the only players to play mid-Echo back after release.
Well, I mean, with the way things have been going, I guess I wouldn't be too surprised with the brand pick. Why not? Why not? I'd love to see the Gangplank, though, new Gangplank. Or that Fiora Malphite. I mean, there is Kog'Maw on the other side, but they're going to go with Rek'Sai and Ashe for now anyway.
Return to Ashe. Ashe, of course, has really come up just in the last week, ever since that Spenu versus KOO last game of the regular season. Teams have really been prioritizing Ashe, even without any direct change. The only indirect change that's really buffed up the Ashe has been, of course, the introductions of the Zeke's Harbinger, which gives her, the way she interacts with critical chance, gives her extra critical damage. So Prey's arrows in particular have been his strong suit. He's been so good at initiating from the AD carry role.
I think the Yasuo that KT hovered over may be on point as far as what KOO's trying to set up. I mean, if you go Lulu, Rek'Sai with the Yasuo in the mid lane, or the top lane for that matter, that's a pretty big knock-up comp.
Yeah, he has teleport though, so he's probably going Diana or Twisted Fate.
I meant KOO wants to go Yasuo,
yeah.
and KT is showing they know that.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility coming in.
Diana.
The top Lulu being played would be a little bit different for Korea.
What if it was a top Yasuo and a mid Lulu?
He only plays top Yasuo into Gnar. That's the only time we've ever seen it.
Leaving that top pick for last is KT, just to make sure they know most of what they're going up against anyway.
It's fascinating to see in the Korean scene the rapid ascendance of both Diana as a must-pick, must-ban. Remember, KOO ate 3 Diana bans in the last series. We never saw that Diana. Nangne seems to have picked that champion up. Same thing with the Ashe, which has seen a lot of ascendancy despite no real changes. If I was to guess, it's probably going to be the Lulu mid, and yep, it's definitely going to be that with the Ryze locked in.
Okay, well, got Ashe Arrow. I suppose Ashe Arrow, Braum stun. They've got a lot of CC on this team.
I mean, we don't really know where the Ryze and the Lulu are going.
Yeah.
To be fair, it could be something else, but Smeb more of the carry player on KOO, but they had to get some damage in there. This is a nice single target pick composition, and Ryze is really going to be able to get in there with the help of the Whimsy from the Lulu after the arrow setup. So very interesting composition for the KOO Tigers. And they have enough wave clear early that they should be okay. Gnar will be hovered over right here, possibly dealing with that Ryze. Now, the last time we saw these two teams play, Ryze was picked by Someday, and Smeb tried to play Mundo into it, but it was unsuccessful.
We'll see if the Gnar is more successful for Someday versus Smeb's Lulu this time, as it looks like that's what's going to be locked in. It will indeed. I'm really curious to see just what Nangne can do on this Diana. I mean, we've heard rumors, we've seen a lot of mid laners here in Korea playing it in solo queue, but this is the first time we've seen it in competitive play in Korea for quite a while.
Yeah, but it's been rampant. GodV on LGD in China really making that pick work, and he's pretty much responsible, I think, for a lot of what's been going on in Korean solo queue with the professional players. Watching LGD beat EDG with that champion, using it twice in a best of 5, is probably pretty encouraging.
Such a strong laner as well. You can take the teleport. Okay, it takes away a little bit from your kill potential, but never needs to take a defensive summoner. And it turns into an excellent split pusher, which of course can rotate with the summoner teleport. Very strong champion, both defensively and especially offensively after that level 6.
Arrow's Kog'Maw, they're certainly going to need to do a lot of work to keep him safe. That arrow from Prey,
well, it's
going to be a bit worrisome.
It's going to be a big test of Kog'Maw and Arrow's ability to stay safe, because the rest of his team is going all in. He's actually not going to have very much peel in the backline, especially with the selection of Alistar as a support, so he's a little bit on his own. Fortunately for him, there's not a lot of backline threat from the KOO Tigers, so he should be able to stay alive if he plays carefully.
We will see. I'm so excited about this match, man. I mean, a lot of people have been writing KOO Tigers off, us included, throughout the playoffs. I'm done doing that now. Let's see what KT can do against this strong KOO Tigers team. Time to get into game one and find out. And welcome to Summoner's Rift for our first game of the semifinals here, our only semifinal, as SK Telecom is awaiting the victor of this best of 5. Will it be the KOO Tigers? Will it be KT Rolster? By the end of the evening, we'll know, and a lot of it could depend on this first game.
So KOO actually going to be taking the Rise in the mid lane here, running that exhaust, so not going for the mobility with the Ghost. And that's pretty powerful against Diana, because once Diana goes in, you just rune prison her. She's a very binary champion. Sure, she can be strong, but she requires items to really maximize her effectiveness. She's very item dependent, needs the Zhonya's Hourglass, needs some tanky stats, and she's not going to be doing much once that rune prison goes down.
It's worth noting, of course, that Diana players will usually prioritize the National's Tooth or attack speed in general. A lot of her scrapping power is procking and procking her passive. With the exhaust, going to have just multiple different ways, the rune prison or the exhaust, to try and stop the scraps early. And if KOO can just get a free laning phase, scale into the late game, a lot of power coming from that Rise.
That Cyan was saying that it's Buff Girl's last day in the studio. Oh well. Farewell, Buff Girl.
There's Arrow. The Pentakiller is 2 this season.
Yep, that's what it says right there. Pentakill.
It's pentakills all across the Rift, as we already mentioned, both Smeb and Someday with professional Riven pentakills this
We've
season.
had more pentas this season than we've ever had before by quite a bit. I think the most we'd had before that was like 2.
Well, it's also been a lot more games, so you have to consider that factor in.
Oh yeah, true,
We
I
had
suppose.
217 regular season games this season.
That's a lot of games, man.
So we did have, what, 6 pentakills over the course of that time?
But the fun thing is that champion pools specifically for top laners have opened up. We are seeing the likes of the Riven top lane. Remember, this was actually the first season to have a top laner pentakill in the history of champions.
Yeah. Which is pretty surprising considering all the jacks that Shy used to play way back when, but I guess he never quite got that penta.
Unfortunately not.
Well, it looks like standard lanes starting off here.
My worry in the late game for KOO Tigers specifically is they've gone with this top lane Lulu, with the only person on the team with teleport. Lulu will lose trades against both Na and Diana in the late game, specifically once Diana picks up a few items, maybe the Abyssal Scepter, any sort of defense. So when it comes to just prepping those minion waves, which of course is consistently a KOO's strength, managing the rotations in the late game around objectives, especially if KT get any sort of lead in that objectives, is going to be very difficult, just with the lineup they've picked.
Very nice poke by Smeb early on, though. Pushing Someday back for the moment, going to force that early recall too, and that's going to probably mean a teleport burnt by Someday to get back to lane to not miss any CS.
You're not really worried about Lulu teleports, though. She's actually one of the least threatening teleport top laners.
She's not flat.
Oh, gank on the mid lane here. Nogna in a little bit of trouble. There's a rune prison, gets knocked up as well. Has to burn that flash early. The exhaust goes down. I don't know if they're going to get him, though. Oh, so close. So close, but Nogna manages to live. Flash. Wow, Flash is burned for both Hojin and KOO.
It's not that punishing. Remember, Nogna can just teleport back into mid lane with the Summoner spell, so not going to lose out on much. They only just now pushed the minion wave in and going to pick up even all the experience as well.
Not a whole lot lost there. Very close to picking up that first blood. Would have been a huge boon to get KOO rolling. As it is, he has to recall before he can get his tier, so that's going to be delayed when it comes to his stacking.
And walk back to lane. Doesn't have Summoner teleport himself, so...
That was worth a try, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
Nearly succeeded, and Nogna will need to be careful. He doesn't have any flash now for a while, so Hojin may be able to have a decent opportunity a little bit later in the game.
It's really hard to gank for Diana pre-6, though. She's not going to close that gap very efficiently, especially without that flash. So we'll see if they can do much of anything. Well, Score is going to be coming through here, not trying to gank yet. And we talked about KT before, but KT really a team that thrives once they can get into the enemy jungle. And we've seen that even against SK Telecom when they took a game, is once Peekaboo and Score start getting into your jungle, you almost always lose. There's not really much you can stop when it comes to how many wards they get in there, how willing they are to fight deep in the enemy territory, and how calculated they are when they take those skirmishes.
That's a good bot lane for KOO Tigers then, because it's really keeping KOO in here. That's preventing a little bit of exactly what you just talked about.
Just given the strength in the late game of the rotational play, of the fact that they have 2 teleports, Trojans, just looking around the bottom lane, I feel like the Dragon game, specifically picking up the first 2 Dragons, is going to be that much more critical to the KOO Tigers. Now, you could argue that with Ashe and Ryze, they haven't necessarily picked up champions that are conducive to picking up those early objectives, but given the fact that in the late game, they get behind in Dragons, it'll be so hard to find a window, given how much extra split pushing power the likes of a split push Nashor's Tooth Diana can provide will hold back the KOO Tigers. I just feel like monopolizing this objective is the most reliable way to really be a threat in the late game if you're the KOO Tigers.
Yeah, and even though they have the Ryze for that big-time late-game carry, their engage really isn't the strongest. They're super dependent on Prey's arrows to engage in the late game, and especially without the Ghost onto Ryze. Sure, they have the Whimsy, but oh man, the 1v1!
Did he get it? First blood for Smeb. That's what I like to see. Even though it's not support, Bloodthirsty Lulu is always good for Doa.
Gets the first blood on the regular season MVP and just a pure 1v1. This matchup goes poorly for Lulu as the levels go on, but man, that's actually a really big advantage and gets the items rolling.
I came back with that second ring and it was a little bit too strong for Someday to handle. That was a sick 1v1 though.
Now Someday's itemization might have to be more defensive. Maybe Hexdrinker will be too offensive, or maybe has to go into the Spectre's Cowl, and it will increase the window where Smeb can just free auto in the matchup.
Scar gets hit by the Winter's Bite there. Gorilla was on the scene to prevent the gank in mid lane, trying to protect his pink ward as well, and it looks like he'll be able to. So KT struggling just a bit here in the early game.
Well, those defensive pink wards are so important when you play against KT because that is their major key to winning is how much more information they have than you. And with that denial, Gorilla has been a player who's had a standout season in spite of KOO's ups and downs. He's been the driving force, very high kill participation for this team because he was the one making plays happen when Hojin and Wisdom were struggling.
It's going to be a Rod of Ages early for Lulu, it looks like. And with a little bit more AP on that item now, I suppose it is a bit stronger for that top lane Lulu than it used to be. I'm still shocked we saw Someday die in a 1v1 versus a Lulu.
Just had all the pressure. He just had all the pressure in the lane. Surprising to see them pick up the kill. The other surprise, remember, Gorilla, Peekaboo, traditionally in the regular season, packing up and leaving lane was their game, but now with hyper carries next to Ashe and Kog'Maw respectively, they've been shackled into the lane, and the one big thing this has done for KOO in their 6 postseason matches.
Oh, Arrow comes in. They get the flash.
Arrow onto Arrow, flashed
That's
away.
That's right. The Arrow gets a flash from Arrow.
That's not going to be confusing at all.
No, that's going to be easy to play-by-play.
Well, you know what?
Great.
We officially avoided the meta where when Arrow was on KT Arrows, we could have had KT Arrows had he played Ashe. So we dodged that bullet. Now we just have to talk about Arrows if he chooses to match the Ashe later in this best of 5.
The Arrow. Double A. At least we, like you said, we didn't have to deal with the triple A.
Yeah, just coming back to the big shift in the KOO Tigers, Gorilla hasn't been packing up and leaving. He was actually the one who was snowballing Smeb, who was the only member of the KOO Tigers who would consistently get, say, 100 gold ahead of his opponent 10 minutes into the game. Prey, someone who has always been dealing with scraps, just playing Corki and Sivir, hanging back in the lane while his support roamed. Big difference in the playoffs, in the 6 games KOO have played. He's actually 220 gold ahead of his opponent, picking champions like Lucian, or if it's the Ashe, Gorilla is staying there with him. And just putting the power onto Prey has actually empowered some really big carry performances for this player, and it hasn't hurt Smeb. We just saw a solo kill, his Malphite play, his Shen play, Shyvana has all been on form, despite the fact that Gorilla hasn't been visiting top lane.
Yeah, and we've seen too that Prey's arrows have been very accurate, very good, despite long distances.
Hasn't been too many Ashe players so far in Champions, but handedly the best has been Prey.
Yeah. Best out of like, what, 2 we've seen so far?
I believe Fury's played
Fury's was pretty good.
Okay, we've got 3, all right.
Fury's was definitely pretty good.
Fury started the train.
Yeah. Man, Peekaboo really has been just like trapped here in the bottom lane. With all the aggression.
Of course, if he gets unshackled from the bottom lane, easy to go ward up the enemy red side, start to get that control over Dragon. It's been denied, and KOO's been pushed up the whole time, so Ashe with lane control, you don't say that very often, but it's been that way so far, and he's even felt confident enough to get just a Avarice Blade to go along with the BF sword.
Curl doing okay in the mid lane, keeping even with Nagne's Diana at least.
I'm a little bit worried here. Of course, we know that the Ryze scales well, but Diana is no slouch at 6 items either. Just an absolute monster to deal with when it comes to the late game. They have so much crowd control too. A Moonfall into Pulverize could be absolutely devastating if KT manages to land it. And KT definitely with the engage advantage in this particular game. KOO Tigers will be struggling to get onto them.
Oh, Nagne getting locked up, taking some damage, but KOO, of course, with the rest of the KT members there, can't push ahead too far. Oh, they're going in on a Prey. There's that Pulverized Prey in a lot of trouble, taking a ton of damage. Teleport coming in for both teams. Prey's gonna escape for now. Teleport canceled for KT. But here comes Hojin. Can they make anything happen here? Flash, there's the slow on to Arrow. There's a knockup from Smeb as well. Great Lulu play. There's a Bramald coming down. Arrow's gonna go down as well. Prey with a kill there. Peekaboo in a little bit of trouble. Has to burn that Flash as well. His ultimate is finished as well. Oh boy, Nagne coming in. KOO needs to be a little bit careful here. Nagne still getting a bit low. There goes Score. KOO with a kill. Peekaboo tries to come in for another knockup, but they can't even get a turret kill. 3 for 0, a huge fight for KOO.
Oh man, and that fight started because Someday canceled his TP. He thought Arrow and Peekaboo were in the clear. They tried to use the Summoner heal just for the speed boost to get back to the turret, but the reaction was so fast. KOO made it down to that bottom lane, and once Diana came in, it was pretty darn bad for KT. So Arrow going to try and get out of this particular situation, but he manages to Smeb here will flash for the Glitterlands. Arrow's flash already down, and it's just them trying to play defense from that point.
Just watch the minimap. Ryze walked all the way to bot and matched the timing of the teleport on Nagne. Nagne didn't want to teleport. Someday canceled his teleport. The exhaust was clutch. Absolutely clutch. I believe it was from Gorilla this time. It was from Gorilla. Right on time. Remember, Gorilla's clutch exhaust changed the course of the first game of the last set, and it's on point again.
And Gorilla nearly died there too. He just barely got out of tower aggro range as Peekaboo tried to at least trade for something, but it wasn't to be, and that is a lot of kills now on to Prey after the mass teleport brawl in the bottom lane. 4 for 0 and a healthy advantage for the Tigers.
I gotta say too, man, Smeb's aggressive Lulu play has been so good. We have not seen Lulus go that aggro very often too, but he was flashing for the Glitterlands for the slow, getting in there to knock up with his ultimate on himself. That's awesome.
And let's just take a step back. Remember, KOO Tigers, they had the aggressive rotation. They had the lane control in both top and bot to make that happen. That's never been the story about the KOO Tigers. These are defensive laners, but both had pushed up their lane, both Ryze and Lulu, and rotated bot first. This is a new KOO Tigers. This is a playoff KOO Tigers.
It really
and
is.
This is a team that could really go on to face SKT in the final.
Yeah, now the thing about KT though is that they've shown such incredible comeback potential this season. You really can't count them out. In Game 2 of this last series, I thought KOO had it all sewn up. It looked very decisive for the Tigers, but yet KT has the mettle just to get the farm onto the right people to make a comeback in some tough games.
Well, I don't disagree with you. It's very soon to be 2 Rod of Ages. Despite the fact they're still scaling up, they're winning these skirmishes, they're rotating fastest. Okay, they haven't got the dragon, and I feel like giving up the dragon, given the double teleport, might be a headache come this late game regardless of the Rod of Ages stacking, but KOO is making the most of what is a difficult team comp to navigate in the early game.
True. It is a best of 5, and I'm sure this is not going to be a 3-0. Although now that I've said that, inevitably it probably will be, but I think we're going to 4 games today. That's my official prediction. Don't know who's going to win it, but I think it's going to be 4 games.
I think that it's really hard to see a situation where KT doesn't take at least 1 game because they are so decisive when they get any kind of lead, and they're really good at closing out with an early game advantage. So thinking that they fall behind in 3 consecutive games against KOO would be certainly a big statement from the Tigers, but I just don't think it's likely to happen.
You know what's crazy too is that we're about 14:30 in and still no dragons taken by either side yet.
KOO doesn't really have a team to scrap for dragons. They're really scaling up. They've done a lot better than expected in this early time. Speaking of timings, 24 minutes, that will be when both Rod of Ages are fully stacked. That's when the power's really going to be looking great for KOO. And I mean, just talking about this particular game, obviously it's a long best of 5. Diana in the late game, we don't have many data points on champions Diana, just how strong this champion can be in the late game. When you take a step back, whenever she's in the meta, you remember she's an assassin, she's very, very tanky, of course, double scales with resist because ability power gives her more shield, and shields effectively acting as health, scale with resists. And she's an awesome split pusher. She scales so well with attack speed, her passive works on turrets. This champion does a lot of things. She's the backline threat onto Ashe. So if Nagne hits a certain item cap, there's no guarantee that Prey will be able to navigate the fights, however defensive, however improved his positioning is.
Well, I would say you're right. I mean, I think that does seem like KT's ticket to victory in this first game. Very comfortable 3,000 gold lead, though, established by the KOO Tigers early on, and now they're looking to start knocking down those turrets. Top one down. Where do you go next? Prey, you know, of course, using those hot shots to keep track of people.
It's the issue with KOO is, again, that late game situation where they don't have the reliable engage. It's a scary prospect. You can see the potential for a combo coming out of KT. You can see a situation where a Cocoon turns into a giant Diana engage. They have big potential, but there's also the Gnar into Moonfall into a pulverized combo that could be really devastating from
definitely.
KT. And KOO may have some issues with that if they're caught out incorrectly.
They're going for this tier 1 in mid lane now. 4 members of the KOO Tigers there. Looks like all 5 as Prey joins in. Will KT try to engage this? They've got everybody there but Someday, and Someday does have his teleport. They can't save the turret, though. 2-0 now. Looks like they might trade their top lane turret for it.
It's crazy to think, but this game has all been Smeb. Solo kill up top, rotating bottom first, pushing out top to make it safe to pick up this mid turret. Smeb has been super on point. Will he be able to stop the turret going down? Doesn't look like it.
Nope, Someday should get it, but he might pay for it with his life here. He's about to go Mega Gnar, though, so Smeb needs to be careful. Okay, yeah, just using that to escape.
That was pretty bold, considering that he didn't have any wards in the top side and his mid lane had just been taken out, but he liked what he saw. Meanwhile, KOO making a solid call to just 5-man the mid lane right now, force this Diana, who has very few escapes, to extend dangerously into the mid lane. They have deep wards on both sides of the enemy jungle. KOO really playing this one by the book after getting an early advantage.
Use the keyword wards. This has been something that KT, Score and Peekaboo, by far the dominant vision invading support and jungle duo. They have no aggressive wards in this map whatsoever because they've never had the lane control to be able to free up Peekaboo or even just invade if you're Score.
Yeah, very true. Looks like Hojin's going for Dragon by himself now. A couple other members, Grill and Prey, coming up to help. And we'll see if they're able to get it. Nagne coming down. There's the teleport. This is going to be the big fight we talked about. Knock up on the Gorilla. Peekaboo loses a lot of health already. They're going to need to burn that out. They catch Nagne in the back lines. Kuro holding him out. Arrow misses after the flash from Nagne. KT still looking strong. Oh, big Gnar, but who's going to support him? Peekaboo comes in. Kuro gets exhausted, but still doing damage. There's the knockup Moonfall as Nagne re-engages so many low-health KT members. 2 kills for Prey already, and there goes Score. Score manages to pick one up before he goes down, eventually to Smeb. A 1 for 3. Man, these fights have been close, but so far, KOO has been able to take every one.
KOO is fighting on the razor's edge, low health, flashing. Their summoner spell use has been so on point. And because they have these 4 members, they have very good turret damage with the likes of Lulu and Ashe. They're picking up the objectives every time they win these skirmishes.
Yeah. One more mid tower down, and you know, that little team fight, it was close to going either way.
It really was.
Not the greatest gnarl from Someday as he popped in, but you had to go for that if you're KT because you had the Gnar bar in a good place. They're still trying to scale. This is your chance to be successful. And Kuro, of course, that was so huge too. It missed, but keeping Score out of this fight made it effectively a 5v4 for the entirety of the engagement. And KT couldn't really deal with that. Had Score been there earlier, this fight probably goes the other way.
And when Nagne flashes over the wall, had to wait for his ultimate cooldown to come back, so wasn't involved for the majority of the fight. Was effectively a 5v3 for large
another
swaths.
Dragon fight, it looks like. Dragon getting low already. KT wants to take it. Someday coming in from behind. He's got the Gnar bar ready. KOO needs to be very careful here despite winning the previous 2 fights. Dragon going back to full health as it leashes back to the Dragon Dome.
They're waiting for Sumday's ult. It's back up
Yep.
right now. It wasn't up at the start, even though the Gnar bar was in a good place, so they need to just wait for that one to go on through. Poke damage, doing some work here.
No flash for Someday right now either, so he doesn't quite have all the engage tools for this Gnar. KT's still being aggressive around this Dragon, but they need to. It's a bit of desperation now.
Well, Mega's gone now.
Yep,
or
it
Someday is ticking down.
It's running away. They got to go for it. Nope, they can't. They didn't find the engage. And now KOO just going to push in. Arrow goes through. Gets a stun onto Peekaboo. He gets out of it with his ultimate immediately, though. But it's enough. It's enough scariness that KOO's going to be able to get in on this Dragon and take it.
KOO's patience around this objective was super impressive. First Prey would not walk past the choke until he saw Someday reveal himself on the Gnar, so was safe there. Then they waited out the cooldown from Gnar, started up the fight. Importantly, unspent gold. Arrow was sitting on 1,500, but Lulu was the person who had spent the gold on KOO. Of course,
wow.
Ash came into that fight with the static shift, with Infinity Edge compared to just a Trinity Force. So the power, I mean, obviously a much lower item ceiling on Smeb, so much more relevant without spending that gold compared to Kog'Maw, who was just very behind.
This is such a much better KOO Tigers team than we saw in the second round of the tournament. I continue to be impressed.
It's flabbergasting seeing their improvement. In 3 series, they have been night and day.
Really has been.
I thought they were definitely just heading towards another kind of lackluster end of the season. Now, we saw them finish first in spring, but they didn't even bother to show up to the finals. And, you know, for me, the most important takeaway from this is that the KOO Tigers finally seem to be able to play in high-pressure situations. If we look at the history of this team, one of their issues at IEM and Katowice, at the finals in the summer season, is that they really just cracked and looked like they could tilt under pressure. We saw Hojin really floundering and kind of weirdly ganking top lane over and over for Smeb when they started to get behind. Now, they haven't been behind too much, I would say, in the playoffs so far, but they did have a couple of close games versus CJ. And that's something new for this roster, is actual mental poise in a must-win situation.
It has looked a lot better. They have looked much less affected by the wins and losses in the series than they did before.
Poking around the top. I mean, let's think about the 2 things that have changed for the KOO Tigers. The first one, Hojin into the lineup, putting trust in this jungler who was one of those stragglers at the end of the previous season. Then named Lee, was really struggling, easily out-jungled by Bengi as KOO, looking for a pick on anyone. Peekaboo, a little bit overextended, but should be fine. The other one, of course, is Gorilla, really putting their trust in Prey, doubling down on getting Prey ahead. This is a guy who struggled with positioning the whole start of the season. You might understand, okay, pack up and leave that lane. Prey's going to lose anyway. Now suddenly doubling down on Prey, picking the Ashe, picking Lucian, going for these strong 2v2 lanes.
I mean, when you think about it, too, this is Prey's like 3rd year as a pro player here in Korea. You know, he probably doesn't have a ton of time left. He's already lasted for a long time. He may well realize that this could be his last real chance to get to Worlds, to win a couple more tournaments, or win a tournament. Well, he won Champions Winter way back when, but he wants to get another one, you know?
He's also a world semi-finalist. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
He's had a pretty successful career, all things considered.
But his renaissance, giving him these tools to succeed. He's, you know, would be top 2 in postseason MVP, and they give him difficult positional-based champions like Ashe that have to engage. They're very squishy, that don't have escapes. These are all things that, 6 weeks ago, we would have said, okay, this is a drafting mistake from KOO, given that he was getting caught out in Juggernaut, getting caught out on Sivir, and suddenly now he's the master of Ashe.
Whoa, flashes.
Wow.
2 flashes for 1 arrow, man.
The value.
The value is so real, man.
10 minutes of cooldowns blown there, 2 5-minute flashes.
Jeez, and with no flash on Diana, they're like, all right, well, we can just go for Baron, no flash on Arrow. He's so vulnerable. KOO Tigers, here comes the teleport from Someday. KT wants to fight it anyway. Baron already getting very low. He's going to come in. Peekaboo's going to try to make a play here. Baron taken by KOO. Nagne getting low, gets taken out. KT already on the run. There's the exhaust on the Arrow. They've caught him. Both carries out of the way. Double kill for Smeb. And KOO Tigers, they might be ready to cruise to victory very soon here.
Well, realistically, I think this game was decided when KOO actually was winning fights in their power trough, and now they've really amped up. Nagne is quite far behind, and they are just going to push forward here. easily taking an inhibitor. And interestingly, it's a 24-minute, nearly 25-minute game where only one dragon has been taken. But it's been all about KOO playing the map better, using teleport better, taking towers at the appropriate time, and such crisp shot calling.
Wow, let's watch that Baron fight one more time. Peekaboo tries to flash in and make a play, but they can't steal away the Baron.
Yeah, at least not even on the map just yet. You can see Hojin in the backline, flashes straight onto Arrow. There's nothing Arrow can do. Score not relevant whatsoever in this fight. The KOO Tigers were always wonderful team fighters. It's just that their play in the early game, specifically their individual laning, held them back to the point where they were only on equal goal. They were only on equal scaling. 30, 40 minutes into the game, suddenly, with much smarter early rotations, with doubling down to standard lanes, not looking for Gorilla to roam, just playing things out standard League of Legends, man, they look a whole new team.
They do. Oh, there's a slow on the Peekaboo, runs in, knocks away the blue buff. Arrow comes through, hits Score. There's more damage. Score repelling, gonna go over to the Grump. He got to the Grump, and he got away because of it. Cocoon on the Gorilla. KT, an interesting spot here. Ray separated a little bit. Yeah, they need to disengage. That was a bit of a dangerous position for a moment there.
Yeah, Someday was looking for a flank when he had nearly a full Gnar bar. And Someday actually has been playing around his rage really well this game in spite of the defeat, you can see. And this match, we said, if there's going to be a top laner that gets going, that's probably going to be the difference between victory and defeat for KT or KOO because they are such top lane focused teams.
Very true.
Almost feels like the lane swap is necessary for KT because Peekaboo, he is the one that to me has looked the most different from the last time we saw him in this series. Kuro
trying to flank. They're going to go in. Gnar with the full ultimate. There we go. Three-man ult against the wall. Peekaboo getting there for the headbutt. Pulverize. Diana comes in for more CC as well. Can KOO somehow turn this around? It looks like they are. What in the world is going on? KOO somehow, despite all the CC, gets the ace, and they get a clean ace. Nobody dies.
Well, they're just so far ahead right now. There's a surrender coming in.
A 26-minute game, and KOO Tigers takes the early lead. Wow, what a game one.
And that's the combo that they were trying to set up that entire game. Was really well executed, but with a 10K gold deficit and Baron buff, really, what can you do?
Smart itemization as well, Monty, because remember, it's two fully stacked Rod of Ages just completed a couple of minutes ago. It's a sick burst combo from the KOO Tigers. So from the KT Arrows, so KT Rolster, but it doesn't matter because they're just so damn tanky, and with the Lula ult as well. Prey free hit the entire fight, full items AD carry, an easy win for the KOO Tigers.
Yeah, a beautiful game from the KOO Tigers from minute 1 until minute 26 when they got a rare surrender out of a team here in Champions. And man, if anything's going to tilt KT, it's going to be that. But I think we're still in for a good series.
I don't think so. I think that they played the late game as well as they could, given how far behind they were. Right. And you can really chalk that up to some misplays around the teleports on that bottom lane gank. You know why you lost that one. You still have a lot of strength left in you. So just say, chalk it up, say, hey, we'll get it next time. We just don't need to commit or undercommit that hard to the gank, and I think we can do it.
And that last fight was such a shooting gallery for Prey and Smeb. We're watching the replay on our other monitor here, and KT just absolutely destroyed.
Speaking of shooting gallery, can you leave that Ashe up? Because, man, those arrows did so much work.
Yeah, that's right. So, when we come back, guys, Game 2, KT versus KOO. Can KT tie it up, or will KOO jump out to an even bigger lead? Don't go anywhere. We'll be back for that game.